It is time for epic history. We have the American Revolution, Battle of Quebec. Of course, last time we did this, I believe it was the Battle of Bunker Hill. Washington had I'm pretty sure Washington had a really good victory there. But Battle of Quebec, if you know anything about history, the American Revolution, this is not going to be a good day for the Americans, per se. So let's go.
Autumn 1775. King George III has decided to punish his rebellious colonies in America. While some British subjects sympathise with the Americans, a growing number see them as the king does.
Dangerous and ill-designing men who forget the allegiance which they owe to the power that has protected them.
Protected them from who?
The king and his advisors pore over maps and military.
Sorry, the Earl of Sandwich always is funny to me. I don't know why. I think there's like literally a guy that's like the Earl of a sandwich shop. Never mind my ignorance. Let's keep going.
The king and his advisors pore over maps and military reports, while seeking to raise a force of 18,000 German auxiliaries to reinforce their army in America.
Yes.
When once these rebels have felt a smart blow, they will submit.
The king tells his ministers. Across Britain and Ireland, ships are requisitioned. 20,000 soldiers muster at Portsmouth, Cork, and other ports.
Wow.
The largest expeditionary force yet seen in British history will soon be under sail.
By the way, go subscribe to Epic History. I know you probably already are, but do it if you haven't. I need not mention to you the great importance of this place and the consequent possession of all Canada. To whomsoever it belongs will the balance turn. Wow. George Washington to Benedict Arnold.
In Philadelphia, the Second Continental Congress knows that the British will strike soon. General Washington commands the main Patriot Army, which besieges the British in Boston. Patriot forces control much of the 13 colonies, with the help of local committees of correspondence, inspection, and safety. But elsewhere in North America, the British remain in control. Their colonies in the West Indies rely on the British military to protect them from imperial rivals and slave revolts.
Yeah, bunch of trade, bunch of economical decisions happening in this view right here.
They will not risk rebellion. Florida's population is small and scattered, more worried by the threat of Spanish invasion than British tyranny.
So at this time, it's not Spanish Florida, it's Anglo Florida? Okay.
Native American tribes assume a watchful neutrality, although most secretly favor the British, seen as the more useful ally. But American patriots hope that Canada might still come over to their cause. The province of Quebec has only been ruled by the British since 1763.
Yeah, 7 Years' War, the outbreak of the French and Indian War also culminated here.
Most of its European population is French and Catholic.
Very different from a Protestant English.
They have no love for the British, but the recent Quebec Act has restored their rights and privileges and reconciled many to British rule.
Oh, so the Roman Catholic faith will be tolerated. That's very different. Governor to be appointed by the crown, French civil law to partially restore, French second. Okay, so they're giving them some freedoms.
When overtures arrive from Congress imploring the Canadians to join the rebellion, they are ignored.
Oh, we gotta read this. Friends and countrymen, alarmed by the designs of an arbitrary ministry to hate the rights and liberties of all America, a sense of common danger conspired with the dictates of humanity in urging us to call your attention by our later address to this very important object. We yet entertain hopes of your uniting with us in the defense of our common liberty. And there is yet reason to believe that should we join in imploring the attention of our sovereign to the unmerited and unparalleled oppressions of his American subjects, he will at length be undeceived and forbid a licentious ministry any longer to riot in the ruins of the rights of mankind. Join or die. God dang.
Right now, there are just 800 British redcoats in Canada. But Congress knows the British will likely send reinforcements and use Canada as a staging ground to invade the 13 colonies. So Congress decides to strike first. In its own words, to liberate the oppressed inhabitants of Canada.
They see them as brothers.
The main advance will be made by the 2,000-strong Northern Army, gathered around Ticonderoga, a disorganized force hardly deserving of the name, but led by a talented Irish officer, General Richard Montgomery. In September 1775, he lays siege to Fort St. Jean, guarding the road to Canada. And with the heavy guns captured at Fort Ticonderoga, pummels it into submission in 6 weeks.
That was easy.
The road to Canada is open. But desertion and sickness have already reduced the Northern Army's strength by half. As the army marches on Quebec, a second force races to join them. Colonel Benedict Arnold, an enterprising young officer from Connecticut, has convinced Washington to give him 2,000 men to reinforce Montgomery.
Okay, so you're gonna have about 3,000.
His route is treacherous, through a wilderness of thick forests, rivers, and swamps.
Our march has been attended with an amazing deal of fatigue. I have been much deceived. Our route is longer and has been attended with 1,000 difficulties I never apprehended.
Well, dang, bro. You signed up for this.
Many of Arnold's men give up and turn back. But in early December, he arrives outside Quebec and links up with Montgomery.
It's crazy too, like, because there's a lot of seasonal warfare, like, ideologies, but they don't really have time for seasonality here.
Their combined force is just 1,200 men.
That does not seem like enough to do a siege.
Quebec sits on an imposing bluff over the St. Lawrence River.
And it's not even a siege because you're going to be able to be, you're going to have a supply chain through the waters, and you don't have enough men to siege this. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't think it's going to be effective.
It's the most well-fortified city in North America, with 20-foot walls and 114 cannon.
God dang, they're trying to invade Constantinople in North America, basically.
The extremely able British governor, Guy Carleton, has prepared for a siege, recruiting hundreds of militia and stockpiling ammunition and supplies.
They're screwed.
The Americans are under pressure. It is midwinter. And just as at Boston, they face the prospect of hundreds of troops going home in a few days, when their enlistments expire.
Not even that, but disease, famine, fatigue, wintering, like it's just, the odds are just so stacked. Like, there's no chance. They have no chance.
So, Arnold and Montgomery decide to risk an immediate assault. In the early hours of the 31st of December, under cover of a blizzard, the Americans attack. But it is a disaster. They are met by organised, determined British resistance. General Montgomery is killed, his men routed. Colonel Arnold is badly wounded, while hundreds of his men are surrounded and captured.
And that was even without the reinforcements.
The remnants of the Northern Army, about 600 men, are isolated, frozen, ravaged by smallpox, and hundreds of miles from friendly territory. For now, Arnold stubbornly holds his position outside Quebec. But it is clear he won't last long without reinforcements.
Wow. Remember, it is the 5th of March, and avenge the death of your brethren. Oh, the 6th anniversary of Boston Massacre. And by the way, we're only 4 months away from Declaration.
That winter, Henry Knox, a 25-year-old bookseller from Boston, now a colonel in the Patriot Army, oversees a stunning logistical operation.
Hey, that's why he's going to be the first Secretary of War.
The movement of 59 heavy guns, some weighing more than 2 tons, across 300 miles of snow, mountains and frozen rivers, using sleds, oxen and horses.
Okay, you need those heavy cows.
These are the guns of Fort Ticonderoga, which Knox has promised General Washington he shall have for his siege of Boston, where they may well turn the tide. Knox arrives on the 27th of January 1776, with all 59 guns not far behind.
Jeez.
A jubilant Washington promotes Knox to commander of the artillery.
Just like that.
Washington's first instinct is to use the guns to support a direct assault on Boston, across the frozen Charles River. But his war council persuades him to adopt a more cautious approach, to fortify Dorchester Heights, from where the guns can threaten the British fleet at anchor.
Ah, this is so interesting because this is almost going to be a remnant of like the Battle of Toulon, where Napoleon, an artillery command, I don't even know if he was an artillery commander at the time, does a similar thing to the British fleet. And this is like 20 years prior to that. Whoa, interesting.
Without the fleet guaranteeing resupply, the British Army will have to evacuate. Tons of timber, stone and hay are discreetly gathered at Roxbury, while the Americans open a nightly bombardment on Boston to mask their preparations. The British answer with twice the firepower. On the third night, Patriot forces used the cover of the bombardment to quietly haul 20 guns onto Dorchester Heights. By dawn the next day, they have entrenched the position and garrisoned it with 6,000 troops.
Very smart.
The British are horrified. They open up with a massive cannonade. But their fire does little damage. The British prepare an assault, but snow and hurricane-strength winds force
Hurricane-strength winds.
General Howe to call it off. With his men now close to starvation and decimated by sickness, Howe decides he must evacuate the city. In exchange for an unopposed departure, the British agree not to destroy Boston. On the 20th of March, the British blow up their supply base at Castle William. Then sail for Halifax to regroup and resupply.
Dang. So just like that, Boston is under the American flag.
After more than 10 months, the siege is over.
Wow.
The British have been defeated, and news of Washington's victory spreads across the colonies, sparking celebrations
And hope.
and jubilation. A Connecticut newspaper proclaims,
The joy of our friends in Boston on seeing the victorious and gallant troops of their country enter the town almost on the heels of the barbarous oppressors was inexplicably great.
Wow.
a British lieutenant remarks,
I hope the rebels will get heartily thrashed. I would be content to lose a leg and an arm to see them totally defeated and their whole country laid waste.
Wow. I could not stay in Boston and feel safe with a set of lawless rebels whose actions have disgraced human nature and who have treated all the king's loyal subjects with great cruelty. Dr. Sylvester Gardner. Wow. There's a split. There's definitely a split between the royalist loyalists and the rebels.
not all Americans rejoice to see the British defeated.
Because yeah, this is affecting the status quo. Businessmen and women are probably feeling the hardship of the economy. Wartime economy is good sometimes, but when it's your land being besieged, not so good. And then there's probably a ton of people that, you know, their lives are being disrupted. Fratricides happening. It's just insane, probably, what's going on at this time.
Those who opposed the rebellion, now termed loyalists,
Yeah.
make up around 1 in 5 of the population.
It's pretty significant.
Each has their own motives, which are diverse and often complex.
Always.
Some are recent immigrants to America with strong social and economic ties to Britain.
Makes sense.
Some are doggedly loyal to king and country, including Anglicans, for whom George III is head of the Church of England.
Oh yeah.
Others fear an American republic will lead only to anarchy and mob rule,
Yeah, you can't see what's going to happen in the future. Like I said, disrupting the status quo.
can point to many historical precedents.
Which is better, to be ruled by one tyrant 3,000 miles away, or by 3,000 tyrants not a mile away?
Many
Ah,
fear the horrors of armed conflict.
Our once happy land is plunged deeper into a ruthless war. Torrents of blood will be spilt, and thousands reduced to beggary and wretchedness.
wow.
Many might have chosen to sit out the conflict,
Neutrals.
but local patriot committees of inspection and safety that have sprung up across the colonies make that increasingly difficult.
Ah. This is what they were talking about with tyrannical behavior.
In the absence of royal authority, they have taken up many of the duties of local government and keep an eye on potential enemies.
Yeah, I guarantee you, like we sometimes think of things in black and white, even like as Americans, and we're like looking at a story just like this, and we're thinking, oh, we're the good guys. You know, there's a precedent there that is dangerous to say something such, not to think that there's gray. There's bad actors everywhere, and sometimes the optics will get skewed because of that.
By 1776, anyone suspected of loyalist sympathies is liable to be investigated by such a committee,
A Tory.
or targeted by a rowdy patriot mob, and often driven out of their home.
And sometimes tarred and feathered.
That violent spirit in the patriots of harassing and oppressing the loyalists has spread, and I have been obliged, a little more than a month since, to leave my parishes, my family and friends,
Wow.
and to fly into exile in order to escape violence and imprisonment. if not immediate death.
Some loyalists leave to form their own militia companies that clash with patriot partisans for years to come.
This is a civil war. Like, let's call it what it is. This is literally a civil war.
The conflict will divide communities and families, pitching neighbor against neighbor, father against son.
Crazy. A measure of vigor in eclat will alarm the Americans and revive the spirits of our friends, Lord North says to the king.
The king and his ministers believe New England to be the hotbed of rebellion,
And that's true.
and that especially in the South, most of the population remain loyal, bullied into silence by a minority of troublemakers.
I think for the most part that's kind of true, but there's pockets, obviously.
A British show of force, it is hoped, will lead thousands of such people to come forward and volunteer to serve in loyalist units. In the Carolinas, British governors Josiah Martin and William Campbell have been calling out for just such a measure since they were forced from their homes by patriot mobs the previous summer. At last, in January 1776, they receive news that Admiral Parker is on his way with 50
Peter Parker, they got a Spider-Man?
ships and 3,000 soldiers.
Oh goodness gracious.
But it is a tiny force for such a mission, hastily planned and poorly coordinated to boot. On the 27th of February, a loyalist force in North Carolina duly marches to join Governor Martin on the coast. But at Moore's Creek Bridge, they are ambushed by a larger patriot force. Most of the loyalists are new Scottish immigrants and launch the last known Highland charge with swords drawn.
Whoa. That's interesting.
They are gunned down, and more than 1,000 loyalists are taken prisoner in the ensuing rout. Admiral Parker decides to
We're
attack
just gonna say Admiral Spider-Man.
the port of Charleston, held by around 6,000 rebels. It is the richest city in North America, and the point of
Really? In North America? How much trade's coming through Charleston?
entry for more than 100,000 enslaved Africans in the last century.
That's why.
Its capture will give the British control of a major port and surely inspire more loyalists to rally to the King's cause. But to take Charleston, the British must first capture the rebel fort on Sullivan's Island, overlooking the harbour.
Yeah, you can't leave that there.
Parker's attack is a fiasco. Naval fire is ineffective against the fort's spongy palmetto logs, while shore batteries drive off British transports and inflict heavy damage on Royal Navy warships. The failure of Parker's expedition is a heavy blow to British hopes in the southern colonies.
So barely any effect against the Americans here, and just, you know, a loss on the British side. Wow. And this is just days before independence is declared.
The only other British force in the region is Lord Dunmore's collection of sailors, cast-off troops, and his Ethiopian regiment of
Ethiopian regiment.
former slaves. But they have been decimated by smallpox and typhus. The hopeless situation leads Dunmore to withdraw his forces and return to London, abandoning the Loyalists of Virginia. By July 1776, from the Chesapeake to Charleston, there is not a single British soldier.
Dang. That's the problem for Britain right there. This was their strategy. They were going to use this as a tactic to go against the cause, and now they can't. Initially, right now, they can't. We have all the reason to expect the worst as far as their power extends, and they will inflict every species with calamity upon us. President of the Congress, John Hancock, Washington.
April 1776.
By the way, simple idea right here that just tangented in my brain. John Hancock's president of the Congress. The Declaration of Independence obviously has his signature, the largest. Is that primarily why his signature is the largest? Because he is the president?
For the first time since its formation, the Continental Army is on the march. The soldiers are cheered through every town. Morale is sky high.
And I'm sure like the percentiles of neutral and loyalists are just being diminished because of this morale change.
Their destination is New York City, the largest harbour on the East Coast, where Washington expects the British to strike next. From Georgia to New England, there are now growing calls for total separation from Britain. The desire for independence is fueled, in no small part, by a new pamphlet, Common Sense. Its author is the British radical Thomas Paine, now living in Philadelphia. In persuasive, plain English, he mocks the entire basis of monarchy, while praising the principle of self-government through elected representatives.
How it should be.
Of more worth is one honest man to society than all the crowned ruffians that ever lived. The cause of America is in a great measure the cause of all mankind. The birthday of a new world is at hand.
Loyalists, like Nicholas Cresswell, are unimpressed.
One of the vilest things that was ever published to the world, full of false representations, lies, calumny, and treason.
Treason.
Whose principles are to subvert all kingly governments and erect an independent republic.
How dare someone have independence?
But patriots control the printing presses.
Ah, so you're done. You're donezo, buddy.
An estimated 100,000 copies of Common Sense are printed and sold across the colonies.
Very similar, like parallel. I'm thinking, I know this is not even relevant, but I just want to compare, like in terms of propagandizing. It's like the Mao's Red Book. Not anywhere near in terms of subject matter, but in terms of propagandizing and mass production, I'm thinking about that.
Among the upper and merchant classes, there have been calls for independence for many months.
I've never seen this before, this painting.
Now, Common Sense persuades thousands of ordinary folk that it is the only solution.
Wow.
That June, in Philadelphia, Congress meets daily for heated debates over independence.
Heated debates.
Congress has decided the colonies must be unanimous in their decision. Backroom deals and last-minute U-turns take it down to the wire.
So, notice we see there's 12 states here. Who's missing? We got Rhode Island, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Connecticut. Who is missing? I don't know. I don't know who's missing.
On the 2nd of July, 1776, Congress votes in favor of independence.
Oh, I'm so sorry. There is 13 here. My brain. You know, obviously everyone's seen this painting.
2 days later, the 4th of July, it formally adopts a written Declaration of Independence.
Just like that.
Drafted by John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, Roger Sherman, and Robert Livingston.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Ironically, the Declaration is closely modeled on English presidents, particularly the Declaration of Right and Bill of Rights of 1689.
Interesting.
Debate and revisions continue until the last moment, including the removal of a paragraph criticizing the slave trade.
Oh, we gotta read that. He has waged cruel war against human nature itself, violating the sacred rights of life and liberty in the persons of distant people who never offended him, captivating and carrying them into slavery in another hemisphere, or to incur a miserable death in the transportation thither. This piratical warfare, the opprobrium of infidel powers, is the warfare of the Christian king of Great Britain, determined to keep open a market where men should be bought and sold. He has prostituted his negative for suppressing every legislative attempt to prohibit or to restrain this execrable commerce. Interesting. I wonder if this was because we already know, kicking the can down the road, Virginia has more slaves than any at this time. Probably, right? Yeah, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Heavily, and then more states even up north have a ton of slaves, just because this is way before the Industrial Revolution. So, imagining it's an economic goal and is an ultimatum on a lot of the states that are so reliant on slave economies.
Moment,
Gotta be
including the removal of a paragraph criticizing the slave trade, in order to appease the southern colonies.
Yep.
Eventually, all 56 delegates sign, pledging
Our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
grand demonstrations erupt across what are now commonly called the 13 United States of America. There is a mock funeral for King George in Georgia. His portrait is burned in Delaware. Royal buildings are defaced in New Hampshire. In New York, a 15-foot statue of the king is toppled. Its lead melted into 42,000
Musket balls.
1,088 bullets for the war effort. The colonies are now independent states.
But it's not over.
Unless the British Army can reclaim them for the crown.
And it's not even close to being over. Wow, what a quote. What a quote. The fate of unborn millions will now depend, under God, on the courage and conduct of this army. True statement right there.
For more than a year, the rebels in America have acted almost with impunity.
Pretty much.
No longer.
Besides Quebec.
On the 6th of May, 1776, General Burgoyne arrives in Quebec City from Britain with 7,000 reinforcements.
I remember they only had like 1,800 there at the time.
Brigadier General Benedict Arnold has maintained a blockade for 5 months. But now, massively outnumbered, he must make a rapid retreat. In June, General Sullivan takes command and orders a counterattack at Trois-Rivières. It's a disaster. The retreat continues, and Montreal falls to the British. Meanwhile, Washington prepares for the defense of New York with the bulk of the Continental Army.
Oh, Manhattan.
For weeks, he's anxiously awaited the arrival of the British. Then, on the 29th of June, ships are sighted on the horizon.
Jeez. This is what Lord North was talking about.
With each passing hour, more and more are spotted. 30, 70, more than 100 sail.
No, you can't deny how formidable this would be to see that, especially if there was like fog, to just see these encroaching, the greatest navy in the history of mankind being sailed towards you.
You can scarcely conceive of the distress and anxiety, the city in an uproar, the alarm guns firing, the troops repairing to their posts. My God, may I never experience the like feelings again.
General Howe has arrived with 120 ships and 10,000 soldiers at his command.
Wow.
They have spent the last 3 months training and preparing in Halifax, burning to avenge their defeat at Boston. Soon, Howe will be joined by Admiral Parker's southern expedition and a vast fleet from England,
Oh my God.
commanded by his brother, Admiral Richard Howe. In total, 32,000 soldiers, 12,000 sailors, and 400 ships are converging on New York. Almost half the military might of the British Empire. British troops land unopposed on Staten Island,
New Jersey.
welcomed with cheers from the small, loyal population. And learning of the Declaration of Independence 10 days later, General Howe has a reply. 2 Royal Navy frigates sail up the Hudson and bombard Manhattan with impunity. The British are back. To American patriots, King George III was a great villain, a blood.
It's crazy. Yeah. Wow. Ooh, where do we go from here? What a video. Amazing video. Love this series. I don't know how many more. Usually they do like a series of 6. This is part 4. I imagine we have 2 more. At least 2 more. It's got to be, right? Let me know if that's different. If there's a, you know, the number of videos. We're in part 4 though. But just to kind of recap, what a crazy endeavor. Started off with Quebec being a disaster, like against all odds. Why would you just press that issue? But they did maintain like a pressure on Quebec. Benedict Arnold did to just sit there while the forces were coming in from Britain. What a stand by the Patriots down south to squash the Royalists, as well as to basically push away any potential landings, whether it be Charleston or Wilmington or other places. But then, of course, you have the final, like Fort Ticonderoga, utilizing the Henry Knox, utilizing those guns, and there's a really good scene in John Adams showing how he was pulling that out with oxen and cows and so forth. But utilizing those guns, putting on Dorchester Island, and I think it was Dorchester Island, right? I definitely want to check now because that's a very important part. Yeah, Dorchester Island, or Peninsula per se, utilizing this as like almost like a Toulon, how I was saying, like when it comes to this particular point of reference for them. And then mainly just making Howe retreat and go to Halifax. Of course, they used that in training, and now, as you can see, like what an insane, like, scene this was right here. Like,
Howe will be joined by Admiral Parker's southern expedition, and a vast fleet.
that's crazy. Like, look at that. That's just insane. It's 20. That's 10. It's like 32,000 men. You know, tons of people. Wow, we got our work cut out for us in these next few videos. I thank you guys for being here. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Consider subscribing. Peace out. Bye-bye.